Alright guys, we've just decided that we will learn Finnish.
But where on earth should we start?
Don't worry, because I'm here today to share you 10 tips that will help you to get started with Finnish. Let's go check them right now. What a fantastic! If you're here for the first time, my name is Aleksi and I create fantastic videos about Finnish culture, lifestyle and language. So if you're into those kind of things, subscribe. Because you're cool if you do that. And tip number one, what I want to share is to define your goals. And what you need to ask yourself is, why do you want to learn? For example, are you planning to move to Finland? Do you just want to get by in everyday life? Or do you even plan to be able to work in Finnish? Or do you just want to understand your Finnish boyfriend or girlfriend better? These are some of the things that you should address yourself, because this will define kind of like the end goal. What do you want to reach by learning Finnish, and how much you want to learn Finnish. And you should also think about setting long-term goals and short-term goals. Let me give you some examples. Okay, let's just say that we're just starting. Today is the day when we start. In 2 months from now on, we will have our first Finnish practice conversation in Finnish. That would be kind of like a long-term goal. Or let's say in 2 years you will be able to have basic conversations quite smoothly. And for example, short-term goals could be 30 minutes every day doing something related to Finnish. Or for example, you could do like weekly goals. You can say, okay, this week I'll focus on spoken Finnish. That would be some skills. Because setting up goals will make it easier for you to get better, because every day when you start learning and practicing, you can keep that goal in mind, kind of the place where you want to reach. Day by day, slowly, you will get towards that goal. Number 2, get the basic feeling of Finnish. So before you go full steam ahead learning Finnish, what I would do if I was to learn a new language, for maybe a week or 2, I would just get the basic feeling of the language. So I could be, for example, listening to music or watching some TV shows in that language, just to get to understand how it sounds to me and what kind of vibes and what kind of impression it gives me. Like let's say if you hear Finnish somewhere and you can recognize it's Finnish, that's a good way to tell you've already got a nice overall feeling of Finnish. Number 3 is just get started. Because every time when you want to start something, and we go on the internet and try to figure out what is the best way to do something. For example, what is the best way to start learning Finnish? And it's really easy to get discouraged because we don't know. And it's okay. It's impossible to find the perfect way, because we are all individuals. We learn in different ways. So what I would say, start doing something is better than start doing nothing. And once you get started, keep up the momentum. Remember when you were kids in the park and you went on a swing, you want to play a little bit, you sit on there and you need to kick it up to get it swinging a little bit, and little by little you have a really fun time because the swing, the arc is pretty big. And that's exactly what you need to do with Finnish. You have to start slowly. You kind of give it a little bit, push every day, and little by little your Finnish momentum gets bigger day by day. So it's really important to keep up the momentum, and you can do that by doing something every day. It could be just as little as 15 minutes a day, because in the long run, if you do just 15 minutes a day, you give a 15-minute push to your Finnish swing. Imagine what it will do in 6 months or 12 months. You will be having like a craziest swing of the century. So getting good at Finnish better, faster, is all about the consistency and the momentum. This next tip is quite important. Don't study any grammar at the beginning. That's right. The problem with the grammar usually is that you need to practice and memorize rules and patterns, and that's really boring, isn't it? And if you start to get involved with the grammar too much and too soon, it's just going to mess you up. And why is that? Because remember, if you want to be able to speak Finnish, we need to do it by speaking Finnish. And if you get too much grammar in your brain, and when you go into your first conversation, you practice crap ton of grammar, you feel confident, but when you actually have to put it into use, you get really overwhelmed, because you're like, oh, what was this grammar all about? And there were some rules about this and this. So what I would do again, if I was to learn Finnish or any other language from the beginning, I would just pick up some useful phrases and vocabulary right in the start, and maybe practice a little bit of those, like real speaking and maybe even conversations. And maybe after 1 month or 1.5 months, 1 to 2 months, I'd pick up like a grammar book and get some easy grammar. Because the grammar will be much more easier to you after you got some real hands-on experience using the language. And this has happened to me so many times. Let me give you just a real example from my life. When I was learning Japanese, and in Japanese, like in any other language, there are a lot of these phrases that are used in everyday life. And one of them is, for example, o待たせしました, which means that sorry to keep you waiting. And at the beginning, I just learned it and I knew the meaning and I knew it when to use it. Pretty good stuff. But what I didn't know, it's actually a very advanced piece of grammar. It's called a causative form. And when I actually learned that causative form months later, that was a huge aha moment for me because I managed to combine a phrase that I used a lot, a really everyday phrase, to a really complex grammar. And that was an amazing aha moment. And I've had a lot of these, for example, when I was learning Japanese, and that is exactly what I want you guys to do as well. So at the beginning, don't worry too much about the grammar. Instead, just learn how and when to use, for example, certain structures and phrases and vocabulary, and just go with those. And later on, when you get the grammar, things will make much more sense to you. Believe me. Next tip I have for you is start learning smarter with apps. And luckily we live this digital era which have tons of different apps also for learning Finnish. And what is especially good about these apps that they use this thing called spaced repetition, which basically means that they will keep account or do accounting on how well we are learning certain stuff. Stuff that are more difficult for us, the app will ask more often, and things that seem to be quite simple for us, it asks less often. So we can actually kind of automate and optimize our learning process by using these apps. And there are a number of good apps for Finnish, for example, Anki, which is a good flashcard app, WordDive, which is actually made in Finland, it's really good. I'm actually using it for German at the moment. And then there's, for example, Memrise, which is also free. And I've also heard about Quizlet and Mondly app. I'll put them up here in the screen. You should definitely check those out. I'm going to also make a separate video on these apps which you can use for learning Finnish. And next tip I have is start using different resources to learn Finnish. And again, this comes from my experience, but what I've noticed that if I've, for example, learned a new piece of vocabulary or new words in an app, for example, and then when I actually hear it in a completely different context, let's say in a video or in a song or in a conversation, I usually get this boom, oh yeah, I've heard that word somewhere. And then I get these aha moments because I'm kind of connecting pieces in my brain. Then I usually remember it for the rest of my life because I get these kind of aha moments, these exciting moments. And that's again something you should keep in mind. And of course we all learn in different ways. So you should also keep in mind what are the best ways you learn. But what you should definitely do is try to use variety of different learning methods and kind of different channels. It could be playing games, or it could be listening to music, or it could be speaking to Finns, chatting with sexy Finns on Tinder, whatever. There are a lot of things to do. So just get creative, think about what you like to do and start applying your skills to those. Next tip, start thinking in Finnish. If you want to be able to speak like a real Finn, you also have to think like a real Finn. There's actually two problems if you try to translate and not think in Finnish. First of all, if you try to translate the stuff you want to say in your mind from your target language to Finnish, things will get slower for you because you always have to put the time in the thought process. And secondly, the Finnish that you will end up with might not sound so native and as smooth as it should, because there's always some things that get lost in translation. So my advice to you is start thinking in Finnish and just do the speaking in Finnish right from the start. This is again something that you just need to practice with, but anything you want to get good at, you need tons of hours of practice. Next tip is get ready to fail, and lots. If you want to learn Finnish and basically any language, you have to put yourself out there and start using those skills, because if you just try to play it safe and not do anything instead of trying your skills, you're never gonna get good. Okay, let's think about it. What is the point of speaking the foreign language? What would you think? Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts. Speaking a foreign language is all about conveying the language to that another person in the language that they are speaking. And that doesn't really require 100% fluent and smooth grammar, because you can actually manage to convey the thought and messing up the grammar completely. This is something that people should keep in mind, because it's really easy to get too kind of scared and play too safe because they think their grammar is not perfect enough for conversations. But that is something you have to get rid of. Get rid of it. Even if you mess up your grammar, there's still a high chance that you will get understood. And actually, if you ask me, if you go there and use your basic Finnish with Finns, I think they will be pretty astounded and pretty amazed that you're actually putting effort for using their language. So go do that. And number 10, and probably one of the most important tips in this video, start speaking from day one. consistently. If you want to learn speak Finnish, you have to speak Finnish. There's no other way around it. I know it's going to be difficult. I've studied 4 different languages myself, and I remember at the beginning it seemed so difficult and everything was so overwhelming, so much new stuff, but little by little it gets easier. Think about it, when you were a kid and you wanted to learn, for example, ride a bicycle, you first tried it and you fell on your face, on your ass a number of times, but once you did it 10 times, 100 times, you became good and eventually you were able to ride your bicycle. And that's exactly how things work in Finnish. It's going to be, of course, it's going to take much longer and it's not as easy as learning to ride a bicycle, but the principle is exactly the same. Getting a speaking partner can boost your skills tremendously, especially at the beginning. And I'm going to share again an experience from my personal life. When I was starting to learn Japanese, I think it was 3 years ago, I was still in Finland. And I decided, okay, I'm going to learn Finnish, I need to get good fast, what should I do? So I realized getting a speaking partner is good. So what I did, I searched my universities, local universities, and if there were any Japanese exchange students, and actually there were, and I eventually found Yuki from Japan and he was doing exchange here, and he actually agreed to join me for lunch every week for 1 hour, and we were speaking some really simple Japanese, and it helped me tremendously.
新しいビデオを撮るつもりです。
Yes. It's really nice.
I was able to build my confidence, my basic vocabulary skills, and also to learn the real native language that you don't also learn in the textbooks, and that was really nice. And you should do the same.
But I don't live in Finland. How can I find a Finnish speaking partner?
Don't worry, because you can, for example, join on italki and find some really cheap lessons for spoken Finnish. And you can take those lessons anywhere. You can join in the link in the description, and when you buy your first lesson, you get a $10 credits bonus, which you can use for another lesson. So that's something what I definitely recommend to you to do. What kind of tips do you have for people who are just getting started? Let me know in the comments below. And check out this playlist for more videos. See you in the next video. So moro.